I've heard the term great thrown around with Brock Purdy, and I understand he's had a great start to his career. It's unprecedented, the amount of success he's had for a young guy. But is he a great quarterback now? I put out a poll. Is he great? 70% said yes. So we got to talk about this. What is the definition of great for a quarterback? To me, it's something you accomplish. You can't just enter the league great because you're talented. Andrew Luck wasn't great because he was talented. It's something you have to achieve. And I think in football, it's pretty obvious. There's one of two things you can do. You either win an MVP or win a couple of Super Bowls. I don't even think winning one is enough to call a quarterback great. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl. Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. You got to win. If you win a Super Bowl and an MVP, yep. If you just win an MVP, probably means you were great at least for a time. And if you win 2 Super Bowls, I think you should probably be in the Hall of Fame. That's my rule. So Brock Purdy, will he win an MVP one day? Maybe. He was in the running last year, although he didn't get any first place MVP votes. Lamar Jackson got 49 and Josh Allen got 1. Those were the first place votes. Will Brock Purdy win a couple of Super Bowls? He absolutely could. He's already been to one. So he has greatness. He's on the doorstep of greatness, but you can't achieve greatness in a year and a half. What does achieving greatness look like? Patrick Mahomes has 3 Super Bowl victories and 2 MVPs. Joe Montana has 4 Super Bowl victories and 2 MVPs. Steve Young has 1 Super Bowl victory and 2 MVPs. Brett Favre had 1 Super Bowl victory and 3 MVPs. Peyton Manning had 2 Super Bowl victories and 5 MVPs. Aaron Rodgers has 1 Super Bowl victory and 4 MVPs. That's greatness. Lamar Jackson, no Super Bowl appearances, 2 MVPs. Is he a great quarterback? Probably not. Is he a great player? Undeniably one of the best of his generation. One of the best, maybe of all time. 2 MVPs. Russell Wilson, who Brock Purdy gets compared to frequently. Was he a great quarterback in his prime? No. He was very good. He won 1 Super Bowl. He never got a first place MVP vote. He was a little bit of product of a great running game, a great defense. He didn't throw that much. He was limited as a quarterback. Couldn't see over the middle of the field. Couldn't throw over the middle of the field. Won a lot of games. Was a very, very good quarterback. Not a great one. So I'm trying to stretch the definition of great quarterback. Who is the best quarterback that wouldn't fit my definition of great? I'm thinking Drew Brees, who also gets compared, Brock Purdy gets compared to him. Drew Brees won a Super Bowl, beat Peyton Manning, put up a lot of great numbers, never won an MVP, didn't win a second Super Bowl, played the best years of his career in a dome in a very pass-friendly offense with a great coach, didn't run the ball very much, didn't do much in the playoffs after his 1 Super Bowl victory. I would say that Drew Brees is not a great quarterback, even though he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. But Steve Young was better. Brett Favre was better. Anyway, if Brock Purdy ends up having a Drew Brees career or a Russell Wilson career, he'll probably win a Super Bowl. And that's really all that you care about. But I think it's interesting, the definition of great. He hasn't won a Super Bowl or an MVP yet. Compare him to someone in a different sport who had a ton of success early on, but then flamed out a little bit. You never know what's going to happen to Brock Purdy. And then isn't even considered in the consideration for Hall of Fame. I'm thinking locally, baseball, Tim Lincecum. When I was in college, Tim Lincecum was considered the best pitcher in baseball. The best. He won 2 Cy Youngs. He also won, at least 2 championships, right? If not 3. I think he was on the first 2 teams. And he's never going to make it into the Hall of Fame. Even though he's a 2-time champion, 2-time Cy Young. Never going to come close to the Hall of Fame because he didn't do it long enough. So Purdy's going to have to do it for a long time to be considered great. Because right now, as great as his resume is, you can poke holes in it. He's 17-4 right now. Jimmy Garoppolo is 18-3. He's better than Jimmy, but that little data point on Brock Purdy's resume doesn't carry as much weight when you realize that Jimmy Garoppolo had the same thing on his resume. Then you look at his numbers, because he had better numbers than Jimmy. Brock had better numbers than Jimmy. Completes almost 70% of his throws, about a 3-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, and leading the league in yards per attempt, yards per completion. That's really impressive. But that's the kind of thing that Ryan Tannehill did a few years ago for a short amount of time when the Titans had Derrick Henry and everyone was putting 8-9 in the box to stop him, and Tannehill could just throw to A.J. Brown, who was one-on-one. Is that kind of not what Brock Purdy's doing now? I mean, everyone's trying to stop Christian McCaffrey. He's got one-on-one on the outside with Brandon Ayuk, and he feasts with that stuff. Also, Tua with Miami. It's the same system. The year before, Brock Purdy led the league in yards per attempt and yards per completion. Tua led the league in yards per attempt and yards per completion. And neither of these guys have strong arms. So how are they doing this? Oh, it's the scheme. That's where the scheme comes in when people say the scheme elevates these quarterbacks. You can see it in their box scores. It's not necessarily the completion percentage or the touchdowns or the interceptions, but it's the yards. How are Tua and Brock Purdy the most prolific passers in the league when it comes to yards per attempt? Are they the most aggressive throwing down the field? No, it's the system. They're getting talented players open downfield off of play action. It's what Mike McDaniel does. It's what Kyle Shanahan does. If you put Tua on another team, he wouldn't be averaging 13.5 yards per completion. You know how we know? Because we saw him with a different coach before Mike McDaniel got there. He wasn't any good. Now Mike McDaniel gets there. Numbers are great, but they still have a conundrum. What do they do with Tua? Do they pay him? They haven't paid him yet. And, analysts that aren't in Miami, fans who aren't tied to that team, it's pretty obvious what they should do, right? Don't pay Tua. Paying Tua would be a huge freaking mistake for Miami. He hasn't proven enough. He's limited. He's very much a product of Tyreek Hill and that scheme. And once they pay Tua, which they haven't done yet, they're screwed. I just thought of that right now. Which brings us to the 49ers. They got the right-handed version. Similar numbers, similar stature, similar system, similar conundrum. Are you going to pay him? Because he's going to want $55 million a year. What are the Niners going to look like with Brock Purdy making that much money? What are the Dolphins going to look like with Tua making that much money? Is Brock better than Tua? Probably. But has he accomplished anything Tua hasn't? Yeah, he's been to a Super Bowl. So did Jimmy. That's why there's really only two accomplishments that matter in the NFL for quarterbacks: MVPs and Super Bowls. Because once you don't have those two things, then you can point to a lot of bad quarterbacks who've done the same stuff. Oh, your numbers were great? So were Ryan Tannehill's and Tua's. Oh, you went to a Super Bowl and lost? Whew, so is Rex Grossman. He's a very good quarterback, but not great yet. Are you a great journalist? Big shoes to fill. No. Name one award I've won. Can't do it. Have I won a Super Bowl yet? No. But if the Niners do, I'm taking credit because I am quality control.